Absolutely.
Throughout time, war has been a major part of our history. It's practically most of our history, but that isn't what I'm focusing on today. As during these stressful and intense events, soldiers and other military personnel have reported seeing mysterious creatures while deployed. Creatures that baffle soldiers and are left in secrecy. These cryptids are mostly known for being reported during wartime. Some cryptids are sometimes spotted only once or multiple times, so I want to go through these accounts and reports of these cryptids, as I find the idea of soldiers unexpectedly encountering an unknown creature during war fascinating to me, because soldiers and military personnel are disciplined and logical as their service requires that out of them. I believe that these accounts could be somewhat reliable as they are less likely to lie or gain anything out of it. But that doesn't mean that every report will be truthful. I also like the fact that I can talk about the cryptids and history of the war to give context. So without further ado, let's go back to the time the United States was going through a civil war. Specifically the location of the White River that flows through Arkansas. Now imagine you're in the state-of-the-art war machine called ironclads, which are basically the early versions of battleships, which are equipped with steel armor and cannons that could shoot explosive shells. While crossing the White River, your ironclad somehow ends up capsizing. Weird, because these ironclads are uniquely designed to prevent that. Some speculate that a sea monster that roams the White River was responsible for this. The White River monster is a cryptid that inhabits the White River of Arkansas. It's described as having gray skin and measuring at 12 feet long. Other accounts describe it as a 30-foot long serpent with spiny backbones and accompanied with a loud bellowing sound. The White River monster is blamed for a capsizing of an ironclad and is only ever sighted after the war. But surprisingly, the river monster ended up being part of Arkansas folklore, being dubbed Whitey by locals. And in 1973, it even got Arkansas State Senate to pass Senate Resolution 23, in which it created the White River Monster Refuge along the White River, where the monster can seek refuge and not be harmed. Which kind of reminds you of Washington State passing a law in 1969 where you could be charged a fee and face a year in jail if you cause harm to a Sasquatch. Nonetheless, the White River monster is blamed for capsizing of an ironclad in the Civil War. I wish I had more info, but this cryptid is less known than any others, and I think it's pretty cool to imagine an ironclad being attacked by a sea monster. Our next location is the Chickamauga Creek located in northwestern Georgia. On September 20th, 1863, the aftermath of the Battle of Chickamauga led to the deaths of roughly 34,000 men, making it second right below Gettysburg of one of the most bloodiest battles of the Civil War. Perhaps of the chaos and mass amount of casualties, some people considered the land cursed, as some believe the amount of bloodshed on the land attracted something malicious. The entity called Old Green Eyes is believed to be the result of that. The description of the Old Green Eyes differs as the only thing that stays the same as his bright green eyes. One account describes during the aftermath of the battle, a human-like creature with green eyes, stringly hair down to his waist, and a huge jaw that has two sharp fangs sticking out, was wandering among the dead soldiers at Snodgrass Hill. At the same time, another account describes a tiger-like creature with shiny green eyes roaming around the dead at Snodgrass Hill. Whatever it might be, it still somewhat roams the land, as there's still reports of Old Green Eyes after the war. And it's almost no secret that locations of battles or conflict have been known for unexplained phenomenon in the modern day. Next up, we're heading forward in time to August 1914 at Mons, Belgium. This is during the early months of World War I. The British Expeditionary Force and the German First Army were the main armies that engaged with each other at the Battle of Mons. The Battle of Mons will be one of the earliest battles of the war, and it will be known as a loss for the British, but bought them time for reinforcement as they held the line. As the war continued on to November of 1914, a Canadian soldier by the name of F.J. Newhouse will report that something was roaming and terrorizing the trenches. That something would be the Hound of Mons. Described as a giant Siberian wolfhound with jet black fur, the hound would be known to roam the area known as No Man's Land. To those who don't know, No Man's Land was the land between two enemy trench systems, meaning it was an area where you're most likely to be gunned down, sniped, or hit by artillery by your enemy, making the land a very hostile and desolate zone between forces. F.J. Newhouse will report fellow soldiers going to scout No Man's Land and now returning, only for their bodies to be found with bite marks and their throats ripped out. Similar reports will come up of howls and sightings of the hound near the trenches. F.J. Newhouse will publish these claims in 1919 in an Oklahoma paper, and will come up with a theory that the hound was the result of a German mad scientist. Newhouse will claim that he had secret papers proving this experiment, saying that the hound was transplanted a brain from a madman that hated the Allies, and was released into the battlefield to hunt Allied soldiers. Newhouse's claims of this so-called secret papers will come up empty-handed, and no records of this supposed experiment ever occurred. I believe the Hound of Mons was an exaggerated view of the war, as at the time trench warfare was very brutal with disease and death seeping through the trenches. As shell shock probably drove soldiers mad, and the slow progression of trench warfare didn't help. Another thing to consider is the idea of during World War I, new military technology was being developed like poison gas, machine guns, flamethrowers, artillery, tanks, and many more. With all these new weapons on the battlefield, to a soldier, who's to know what the enemy might have up their sleeve? And at the time, soldiers were just getting equipped to fight against new weapons the enemy might throw at them. So just maybe the madness of trench warfare mixed with the new weapons on the field could stir up the legend of the Hound. But the most likely explanation was that the story was British propaganda to discredit the Germans, but who truly knows? On to our next location, which is off the southwest coast of Ireland. To give context, during World War I, German U-boats were a real problem to the Allied forces. Germany had scattered almost 60 of them into the Atlantic Ocean, and in 1915, Germans implemented unrestricted submarine warfare, where German U-boats would, without warning, sink any merchant ships, meaning any merchant ship carrying cargo helping the Allies would be taken down. This led to the Allied forces in Europe being blockaded by the Germans. Even though the German U-boats played a big role in naval warfare, the policy of unrestricted submarine warfare will play a part of their downfall, as it led to the United States joining the war, and the use of sonar and other counter tactics will make them not as effective. Nonetheless, on July 30, 1915, submarine SMU-28 was patrolling the southwest coast of Ireland, where the U-boat would strike down a British steamer called SS Siberian with a torpedo. After the sinking of the steamer, the captain of the U-boat commander Führer George B. von Fostenet described in his log that during the aftermath of the sinking of the steamer, he and his men noticed something in the debris where the steamer sank. Before they knew it, an explosion would go off in that area. Either it was a torpedo or the ship's boiler that went off, but what was spotted was something interesting. As the explosion went off, a 60-foot long crocodile creature would be shot up 80 feet into the air. Described as having 4 webbed feet, a long pointed tail, and a head that tapered to a point, after the yeeted launch of the creature, it landed back into the water never to be seen again. The description of the creature leads it to believe that the Germans witnessed some prehistoric beast, but this isn't the only account of some beasts in the waters. As in April 30th, 1918, off the coast of the Belfast Lough in Ireland, a German U-boat by the name of UB-85 will surrender to a British patrol ship. The captain of the U-boat, Gunther Crench, will claim that the night before that, the U-boat was resurfacing to recharge the sub's batteries. While that was happening, he was on the deck with his crewmates getting some fresh air, where he claims a beast came out of the ocean and climbed onto the side of the sub. The creature was described as having deep-set eyes, horns, and a massive monstrous teeth. The creature's weight when climbing made the sub start to lean, which meant there was a chance the sub might start to sink. The captain reported that the monster attacked the gun mount on the sub, while his crew reportedly shot at it with their sidearms. During the struggle, the monster would leap back into the water, never to be seen again. The scuffle led to the U-boat being damaged to the point it couldn't be able to submerge again, leading to them to be spotted by the British patrol ship the next day. It's hard to say if these stories have any truth to them, because just like the Hound of Mons, these stories could have been an over-embellishment or something made up. Whatever the truth is, these stories in my opinion have a small chance of being reliable, but I am being optimistic, as the ocean still remains a mystery to us. Next up, we're going a bit forward in time in the 1920s, where Russia, or at the time was starting to be called the Soviet Union, was coming off a civil war that saw the Bolsheviks as the victor, as the war was between the Bolsheviks' Red Army and the White Army, who were a loose alliance of anti-Bolshevik forces. This civil war was a result of the October Revolution, where the monarchy was overthrown in favor of the Bolsheviks' Socialist Revolutionary Party. After the civil war, there were still rebel groups who opposed the Bolsheviks. So in 1925, in the Pamir Mountains, Red Army forces descended onto a cave of what they believed was a White Army hideout. The Red Army soldiers decided to open fire into the cave, and surprisingly, they got something. But what they killed is what they wondered, as Major General of the Red Army Mikhail Stepanovich Bolbitsky, I don't even know if I got that right, reported after the gunshots that the body they found was something they weren't expecting. What they shot and killed wasn't no White Army soldier, but some type of ape man, described as male, 6 foot tall and covered with brown hair and ape-like. Mikhail even mentioned it looked like an ape with some human features. The soldiers reported that the creature was walking on 2 legs when it was being shot at. After investigating the creature, they reportedly buried it because it was too heavy to carry back. Other accounts say that captured White Army rebels in the area reported being attacked by a group of ape-like creatures. Nonetheless, this story is kind of forgotten, as the general didn't think it was of any importance. It's kind of a mystery if the creature they shot was something ordinary or mythological. as the area has folklore of wild men inhabiting the mountains called almas, and the almas won't be the only Bigfoot-like creature we come across, as we go through more accounts. Now we're going to probably the most popular topic in history, World War II, where multiple countries and lands were fought on. What we're looking at with this account is the remote islands known as the Key Islands in Indonesia, where in 1943 a Japanese surveillance team was sent there to gather information. During this time, many Southeast Asian countries were occupied by Japan, as they were occupied by Japanese forces for their resources and strategic location. The Japanese surveillance team will start to report during their stay on the islands that they will witness strange creatures in the waters. Creatures measuring at 150 centimeters with pig skin and spines on their heads. They were described as mermaid-like, but with 4 limbs instead of a fishtail. The Japanese team was puzzled over these sightings as they were spotted multiple times. The locals of the island paid no mind to it as they were familiar with the creature, calling them Olang Ikan, meaning fishman. One day, the sergeant of the surveillance team named Taro Hariba was summoned by a chief of a nearby village to witness a body of an orang ikan that was found dead on the beach. Taro described the creature as having red-brown shoulder-length hair, human/ape-like face, web appendages, and a wide lipless mouth with needle-like teeth. Taro was very interested in the creature as he had spotted it multiple times on the island. And when returning home to Japan, he urged zoologists to investigate these creatures but was ignored. Nonetheless, the reports of fishmen on the island still remains a mystery, as no one can truly explain what the Japanese saw on those islands. Now we're going from the waters to the sky, as our next entry involves Allied pilots see something strange in the skies of Europe. During 1943 to 1945, reports of Foo Fighters have become a commonplace between Allied pilots of World War II. What are Foo Fighters? Foo Fighters were these unknown aerial objects or phenomena that pilots witnessed. The description of these Foo Fighters differs from accounts but have some things in common. They are reported to be extremely quick and precise, almost being controlled intelligently. Varying in sizes, and in almost all of them appear to be neutral, as the Foo Fighters pose no threat to the pilots. Furthermore, the name Foo Fighters came from a radar operator named Donald J. Myers, who coined the name after his favorite comic strip, Smokey Stover, whose catchphrase goes, "Where there's Foo, there's fire." Before Foo Fighters, they were initially called fucking Foo Fighters. As from the early reports of these objects, they were seen as a nuisance, as one of the pilots proclaimed in a debriefing room, "It was another one of those fucking Foo Fighters." As more reports came in from Allied pilots, it was believed that these objects were of German origin. Some speculating at the time that these objects were secret German weapons, as the Germans at the time were testing out rocket technology with the B-2 rocket, but that wouldn't explain the reports of how these objects interacted and looked. After World War II, the reports of unidentified flying objects would become the basis of Project Blue Book, where the US government determined if these mysterious objects pose a threat to national security, by going over reports of them to find an explanation. I'm going to put a link to the catalog that I found that goes over a good amount of reports from pilots if you're interested. Subsequently, an answer on these reports still remains a mystery, as theories explaining them goes from reflection from the aircraft, to vertigo, or to St. Elmo's fire, which is this weather phenomenon caused by plasma discharge from pointed objects or electrical fields. And probably the most popular theory, that these objects are extraterrestrial in nature, meaning aliens.
Damn, son!
Taking my tinfoil hat off, I think the mystery of UFOs, or UAPs as they're called now, really intrigues me because it's still a mystery we're still trying to solve to this day. And the fact that they were spotted multiple times during one of the biggest wars really shows that maybe we truly still don't know what rounds our skies. And our last location will be the jungles of Vietnam, as American soldiers were sent to Vietnam to combat the spread of communism in the area, as after World War II, the United States feared the spread of communism by the Soviet Union, as both countries were engaged in proxy wars to go against each other's ideology. This era in time is considered the Cold War, as both powers then want to directly declare war on each other, because if they did, it would have meant nuclear annihilation. So instead they just spied on each other, made propaganda promoting their ideology, and as I mentioned, funded proxy wars. During the Vietnam War, American GIs had to deal with many obstacles and challenges. The unpredictable climate and tough terrain of the Vietnamese jungle, and the wildlife like venomous snakes, saltwater crocodiles, and even tigers were something American GIs had to worry about, on top of enemy forces like the Viet Cong, who were well adapted to the environment with these saliva tunnel systems, and littered the jungle with dangerous booby traps for American GIs. But there were also something else in these jungles. Something many American soldiers reported seeing during the war, something the American soldiers called rock apes. In 1969, Delta Company of the 1st Battalion 502 Infantry Regiment reported that while taking a break on the New Mu Tau Ridge, 10 miles south of Hue City, soldiers reported these upright walking apes that at the time were mistaken for Vietnamese soldiers because of their brown fur resembling Vietnamese military uniforms. The story goes that the two parties were stealing off each other's presents on the trail, and the supposed alpha male of these apes started charging at the soldiers. The soldiers reacted to this charge with gunfire to scare the ape away, not harming it, which worked and both parties left unharmed. Some described the behavior that of a silverback gorilla doing a false charge to scare away threats. Similar stories like this of soldiers encountering an unknown ape species in the jungle isn't something new, as one particular hill known at the time as Monkey Mountain was given the name because of the great amount of sightings of this mysterious species. Located in the Son Tra Mountain east of Da Nang, this location is believed where maybe the name rock apes was given to these creatures, as one marine will report that these apes will be above them in the jungle throwing rocks at them. So this mysterious ape species will be known for yeeting rocks at American GIs, and in some stories even throwing back live grenades at the soldiers. They're described as having reddish orange hair, 4 to 6 feet tall, long limbs, strong build, protruding stomach, and mostly seen traveling in a pack. Their behavior from accounts describe them as not being shy around people, as they report to get really close to American GIs. The reason why is not known. Maybe the Rockets are docile creatures, or are strong enough to defend themselves from threats like humans. So what are these mysterious ape species that American GIs keep mentioning? Actually, another thing to mention is that American GIs weren't the only people reporting about these apes, as the Viet Cong and locals in the area report similar encounters with these apes too. One hypothesis is that these soldiers encountered orangutans. Most of the soldiers even came to the conclusion that the apes they were seeing were orangutans, but orangutans inhabited what is now known as Vietnam went extinct back during the Ice Age, as currently orangutans only inhabit parts of Malaysia and Indonesia, and are an endangered species, so the chances that an orangutan managed to cha-cha slide his way to Vietnam seem slim. The only species of primates that inhabit Vietnam are gibbons and macaques, which don't fit the description of rock apes. Another hypothesis is that the stress of war and being in an unknown location confused the soldiers, or the known use of drugs during the Vietnam War could possibly explain these sightings, but these explanations don't fully explain everything. Unlike most cryptids, I generally believe there's a chance that rock apes may be an undiscovered species, as that area of Vietnam was recently discovered to inhabit new species of animals like the Saola. So what are the chances that an undiscovered species of primate inhabited the deep and unexplored jungles? Hopefully as time passes and more expeditions are done, maybe there's a chance that an unheard of or unknown species of ape is discovered that can explain what these soldiers may have seen during their deployment. Hopefully you enjoyed this topic. I know that this is a pretty niche topic, but personally, the account of soldiers encountering something unknown really interests me, as horror movies like Dog Soldiers and Predator seemingly depict soldiers encountering something supernatural, either overcoming it or falling prey to it. Another reason I did this topic was that initially the whole video was going to be about the rock apes, similar to the Yeti video, but I got curious and looked into other similar accounts, which led me to making this sort of list of encounters. I did also learn a little bit because some of the battles and warfare were something I had no knowledge of. So in conclusion, I think the Rockets are just orangutans chilling in Vietnam. Bye.